In the quiet town of Millbrook, the morning sun peeked through the old courthouse windows, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floors. The building stood as a silent witness to countless stories of justice, hope, and human struggle. William Hartley, a judge with 15 years of experience, sat at his bench, preparing for another day of routine hearings. His salt-and-pepper hair and stern face reflected years of dealing with minor legal matters. The courtroom felt still, almost lifeless, as the first case of the day approached. Elizabeth Palmer walked in, her presence immediately catching everyone's attention. She wasn't tall, but she moved with a confidence that filled the entire room. Her navy blue suit was perfectly pressed, each fold and line speaking of precision and care. Her dark skin gleamed with a quiet dignity that seemed to challenge the very walls of the old courthouse. The court clerk shuffled some papers, looking bored and tired. Another morning, another set of traffic violations and minor disputes. But something about Elizabeth was different. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the room with a calm that seemed unusual for someone about to face a traffic citation. William Hartley glanced up, his initial impression already forming. Another person trying to explain away a traffic violation. He had seen hundreds like her before, people hoping to talk their way out of a simple ticket. His mind was already half decided before she even spoke. The citation was straightforward. Elizabeth had allegedly run a yellow light on Oak Street, a small infraction that seemed minor, but could still carry a significant fine. The street in question was known for its tricky traffic signals, where the yellow light seemed to last only a moment too short. As Elizabeth approached the bench, she carried a simple leather folder. Her movements were measured, her breathing steady. She stood with her hands neatly folded, waiting to be acknowledged. The courtroom watched in silent anticipation. William cleared his throat, his glasses perched on the edge of his nose. He looked down at the paperwork, then back at Elizabeth. In that moment, years of unconscious bias played out in the smallest of gestures, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a barely perceptible tightening of the jaw. "Ms. Palmer," he began, his voice carrying the weight of years of judicial experience. "You are charged with running a yellow light on Oak Street. Do you have anything to say?" Elizabeth's response would be measured, calm, and filled with a dignity that would soon challenge everything in that courtroom. But for now, she simply stood, waiting, her entire being a quiet statement of resilience. Morning light continued to stream through the windows, dust particles dancing in the sunbeams. Outside, the town of Millbrook went about its business, unaware that inside this old courthouse a moment was unfolding that would soon change everything. William Hartley didn't know it yet, but the woman standing before him was about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Elizabeth Palmer was not just another person fighting a traffic ticket. She was a force of nature, a beacon of hope, and a testament to the power of dignity in the face of unconscious prejudice. The ticket sat on the desk, a simple piece of paper that represented so much more than a traffic violation. It was a symbol of the small moments that define our understanding of justice, respect, and human dignity. As the hearing was about to begin, the air in the courtroom felt charged with an unexplained tension. Something was different about this morning. Something was about to change. Elizabeth Palmer stood quietly, her calm a stark contrast to the nervousness that typically filled courtrooms. She was ready to face whatever judgment would come her way, ready to turn a simple traffic violation into a moment of profound understanding. The judge shuffled his papers. The clerk watched silently, and Elizabeth waited, her dignity her strongest weapon. Just another morning in the Millbrook courthouse. Or was it? The courtroom felt heavy with tension as Judge William Hartley reviewed the traffic citation. His fingers traced the edges of the document, his mind already half decided before Elizabeth Palmer could speak. The old clock on the wall ticked slowly, each second feeling like an eternity. "Ms. Palmer," Hartley began, his voice carrying a tone of practiced authority, "you are charged with running a yellow light on Oak Street. The evidence suggests a clear violation of traffic regulations. Elizabeth stood perfectly still. Her posture was straight, her hands clasped neatly in front of her. She looked directly at the judge, her gaze steady and calm. Around her, the courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The traffic camera footage played on a small screen. A quick moment of yellow light, a car moving through the intersection. To an untrained eye, it might look like a clear violation. But Elizabeth knew the details mattered. "Your Honor," she said softly, her voice clear and measured, "I'd like to explain the circumstances." Hartley raised his hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Explanations don't change the facts, Ms. Palmer. The light was yellow and you did not come to a complete stop." A quiet murmur ran through the courtroom. The other waiting defendants shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked at Elizabeth with curiosity, others with sympathy. The clerk shuffled some papers, avoiding eye contact. She had seen this scene play out countless times before, a routine traffic hearing that seemed destined to follow a familiar path. "The fine is $250, Hartley declared, his tone final and unyielding. "You can pay at the clerk's desk or contest the ticket through formal appeals." Elizabeth remained calm. There was something in her demeanor that suggested this was more than just a simple traffic violation. Her eyes held a story that the judge had not yet understood. The sunlight continued to stream through the courthouse windows, catching dust, particles that danced in the light. Outside, the town of Millbrook continued its quiet morning routine, unaware of the small drama unfolding inside. Hartley began to organize his papers, signaling the end of the hearing. But something made him pause. Elizabeth had not moved. She stood there waiting, her presence filling the room with an unexpected sense of dignity. "Is there something else, Ms. Palmer?" Hartley asked, a hint of irritation in his voice. Elizabeth's phone buzzed. She apologized quietly and stepped to the side to answer. The conversation was brief, but something in her tone caught the attention of everyone in the courtroom. "Governor Palmer speaking," she said simply. The word governor hung in the air, like a sudden clap of thunder. The courtroom fell completely silent. Judge Hartley's hand froze mid-motion. The clerk looked up, her eyes wide. The other defendants leaned forward, suddenly alert and interested. Elizabeth finished her phone call and returned her attention to the judge. Her demeanor was unchanged, calm, professional, dignified. But now something else had shifted in the room. The $250 fine suddenly felt like more than just a traffic ticket. It felt like a moment of misunderstanding, a small snapshot of a much larger conversation about assumptions, respect, and human dignity. Hartley's face began to change. The color drained slightly, his confident posture becoming uncertain. He looked at Elizabeth, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. A single moment can change everything. A simple traffic hearing, a misunderstood yellow light, a quick phone call. The old courthouse walls seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Elizabeth Palmer stood quietly, waiting. Her dignity was her strongest statement. No words were needed. Not yet. The morning sunlight continued to stream through the windows, dust particles dancing, time moving forward. A story about to unfold. Just another morning in the Millbrook courthouse. Or was it? The courtroom remained frozen, suspended in a moment of unexpected revelation. Judge William Hartley's world seemed to stop spinning the moment Elizabeth Palmer spoke those words. Governor Palmer speaking. The clerk dropped her pen. It clattered against the wooden floor, breaking the stunned silence. Other court officials exchanged bewildered glances. Elizabeth stood calm and collected, her phone conversation brief and professional. "Yes, I'll reschedule the infrastructure meeting," she said quietly. "We'll discuss the highway project next week." Hartley's mind raced. Governor Palmer, the same woman he had just fined $250 for a traffic violation, was the state's highest-ranking official? His previous confidence crumbled like old paper. Elizabeth finished her call and returned her attention to the judge. Her demeanor remained unchanged. Professional, dignified, completely unruffled. She might have been discussing nothing more important than the weather. The other people in the courtroom watched with a mixture of shock and fascination. A young law intern in the back row leaned forward, unable to believe what was happening. An elderly court reporter quietly adjusted her glasses, sensing something historic was unfolding. Hartley cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how small his previous actions must have seemed. The traffic ticket, the fine, his dismissive attitude, all of it now felt embarrassingly insignificant. "Governor Palmer," he stammered, I wasn't aware." Elizabeth raised her hand gently, stopping his explanation. Her gesture was neither aggressive nor confrontational. It was a simple request for a moment of understanding. "This isn't about who I am, Judge Hartley," she said softly. "This is about how we treat people, regardless of their position or background." The words hung in the air, powerful and clear. They were more than just a statement. They were a lesson. Outside, the morning sun continued to shine. The town of Millbrook went about its business, unaware of the profound moment happening inside the old courthouse. Traffic moved, people walked, life continued. But inside this room, something important was happening. A moment of truth. A chance for understanding. Hartley looked down at the traffic citation. The piece of paper suddenly felt heavy with meaning. What had seemed like a simple, routine hearing was now something much more complex. Elizabeth's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it briefly but didn't answer. Her focus remained on the present moment, on the judge, on the small but significant interaction unfolding. The other court officials watched silently. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked curious. A few seemed impressed by Elizabeth's calm and grace. "I would like to pay the fine," Elizabeth said simply. She reached into her elegant leather folder and pulled out a crisp $250 check. The movement was smooth, practiced without any hint of anger or revenge. Hartley accepted the check with shaking hands. His world had been turned upside down in just a few minutes. Everything he thought he knew about this moment, about this woman, had changed completely. Elizabeth wasn't seeking special treatment. She wasn't using her position to escape a traffic violation. She was demonstrating something far more powerful: respect for the system, regardless of her personal status. The young law intern in the back of the courtroom was taking mental notes. This was a lesson in leadership, in dignity, in handling unexpected situations with grace. As Elizabeth prepared to leave, she turned to Hartley. Her eyes were kind, understanding. There was no judgment, no anger, only a quiet hope for learning and growth. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said simply. The words echoed through the courtroom, carrying more weight than the traffic fine, more significance than any official title. Outside, the day continued. The sun moved across the sky. Life went on in Millbrook. But inside the courthouse, something had changed. A small moment of understanding had occurred. A lesson had been learned. Just another morning in the courthouse? Or was it? The courthouse. Hallway buzzed with whispers after Elizabeth Palmer's revelation. Judge William Hartley stood near the window, his reflection showing a man wrestling with his own unconscious biases. The morning light cast long shadows across the worn wooden floor, symbolic of the darkness of prejudice being challenged. "Governor Palmer," Hartley called, his voice uncertain. Elizabeth turned, her movements deliberate and calm. The hallway emptied, quickly. Court officials and lawyers found sudden reasons to be elsewhere. Only Elizabeth and Hartley remained, facing each other like two figures in a critical moment of understanding. "I would like to explain," Hartley began, his hands slightly trembling. Elizabeth's response was unexpected. "No," she said softly. "I want you to listen." Her words hung in the air, powerful and measured. The hallway seemed to grow quiet, as if the very walls were waiting to hear what she would say next. "This isn't about embarrassing you," Elizabeth continued. "This is about understanding, about seeing people beyond our first impressions." Hartley's face showed a mix of shame and confusion. He had spent years on the bench, believing he was fair. Now, in this moment, He realized how many unconscious assumptions he had carried. The governor didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand an apology. Instead, she spoke with a quiet intensity that cut deeper than any angry words could. "Every person who comes into this courtroom deserves respect," she explained, "regardless of their race, their background, their appearance. A traffic ticket isn't just a piece of paper. It's a moment of human interaction." Court clerks peeked around corners. The young law intern who had witnessed the earlier scene listened intently, understanding this was more than just a conversation. This was a lesson in humanity. Hartley's world was crumbling. Everything he thought he knew about himself, about justice, was being challenged in this quiet hallway. Elizabeth stood before him, not as a governor, but as a human being demanding basic dignity. "I've seen this pattern my entire career," Elizabeth continued. "Small moments of judgment, unconscious biases that chip away at people's sense of worth." Her words were not an accusation. They were an invitation to understand, to grow, to become better. The old courthouse seemed to breathe with them. Sunlight continued to stream through windows, dust particles dancing, witnessing this moment of transformation. "I want to help you understand," Elizabeth said. Her tone was kind, almost gentle. "Not to punish you, but to create an opportunity for learning." Hartley's professional armor began to crack. Tears formed in the corners of his eyes, not from sadness, but from a profound moment of self-realization. "I never meant," he started, then stopped. Words seemed inadequate. Elizabeth smiled. It was a smile of understanding, of hope. "We all have blind spots," she said. "The important thing is being willing to see them." The hallway felt different now. The tension had transformed into something more profound, a moment of genuine human connection. Outside, the town of Millbrook continued its day. Cars moved, people walked, life went on. But inside this courthouse, something important was happening. Lesson was being learned. A heart was opening. Understanding was taking root. Hartley looked at Elizabeth, really seeing her for the first time. Not as a defendant, not as a governor, but as a human being deserving of respect. "What can I do?" he asked quietly. Elizabeth's response was simple yet powerful. "Learn. Listen. Change." The morning light continued to stream. Dust particles danced. The old courthouse walls seemed to whisper stories of hope, of transformation, of the possibility, of genuine human understanding. Just another morning in the courthouse. Or was it? 2 weeks after the unexpected courthouse encounter, something remarkable began to take shape across Millbrook and beyond. Governor Elizabeth Palmer didn't seek revenge or public humiliation. Instead, she chose a path of understanding and meaningful change. The state judicial training program launched quietly without fanfare. Judge William Hartley was among the first to volunteer, his experience becoming a powerful catalyst for transformation. Local judges, lawyers, and court officials gathered in conference rooms, learning about unconscious bias, systemic challenges, and the importance of human dignity. Elizabeth designed the program with compassion. It wasn't about pointing fingers or making people feel guilty. It was about opening hearts and minds, creating space for genuine understanding. During the first session, Hartley shared his own story. He spoke honestly about that morning in the courthouse, about how a simple traffic violation had become a profound moment of personal growth. His vulnerability touched everyone in the room. "I thought I was fair," he told the group. "But fairness isn't just following rules. It's seeing the human being in front of you." The training sessions included role-playing exercises, personal testimonials, and honest discussions about race, privilege, and institutional barriers. Participants were encouraged to share their own experiences, their own moments of misunderstanding. Local newspapers began covering the program. What started as a small initiative in Millbrook slowly gained statewide attention. Other judicial districts started requesting similar training. Elizabeth's approach was revolutionary in its simplicity. She didn't seek to punish or shame. She sought to educate, to create opportunities for genuine human connection. The courthouse where everything began became a symbol of transformation. The old building, with its worn wooden floors and dusty windows, now represented something more than just a place of legal proceedings. It had become a place of healing. Hartley continued to work as a judge, but something fundamental had changed in him. He listened more carefully. He observed more closely. He approached each case with a renewed sense of humanity. The young law intern who had witnessed the original encounter became inspired. She began researching systemic bias in legal systems, determined to create meaningful change. Community leaders took notice. Local schools started developing programs about respect, understanding, and breaking down unconscious barriers. Elizabeth's simple act of dignity had created ripples far beyond that single morning in the courthouse. As months passed, statistical reports showed real changes. Complaint rates against judicial officials dropped. More diverse hiring occurred. In court systems, people felt heard, respected, understood. During one training session, Elizabeth shared a powerful message. Change doesn't happen through grand gestures, she explained. It happens in small moments. Moments of listening, moments of understanding, moments of genuine human connection. Her words resonated far beyond the conference rooms. They spread through communities, through conversations, through small acts of kindness and respect. The $250 traffic ticket that had started everything became something of a local legend. People would share the story, a reminder that every interaction is an opportunity for growth, for understanding. Hartley and Elizabeth remained connected, not as governor and judge, but as humans who had shared a profound moment of transformation. They occasionally met for coffee, continuing conversations about justice, humanity, and hope. The town of Millbrook continued its daily life. Cars moved down streets. People went about their business. But something had changed. A quiet revolution of understanding had taken root. Outside the courthouse, a small plaque was eventually installed. It bore a simple message: dignity is our highest law. The morning sun continued to shine. Dust particles danced in courthouse windows. Life moved forward, carrying with it the hope of genuine human connection. Just another day in Millbrook. Or was it?